U.S. President Donald Trump's unprecedented reciprocal tariffs on global imports into the United States took effect April 9th, ushering in a new era of disruption in the global economic order that has largely stood for generations. The mere announcement of the duties last week had sent shockwaves through global markets and caused trillions of dollars in paper losses. With the threatened tariffs now in effect, consumers and investors will begin to gauge the actual impact on the U.S. economy as the cost of the import taxes starts to flow through supply chains and into household budgets. In retaliation, China announced a 34% tariff on U.S. goods, following which President Trump, while sitting next to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, announced 50% more tariffs on top of the already enacted levies. Chinese imports will now carry a cumulative rate of 104%. In this game of economic chicken, who will blink first? We answer later. Meanwhile, during a press briefing, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated, "When America is punched, it punches back harder," emphasizing that the new tariffs were part of the Trump administration's efforts to address what it considers unfair trade practices that harm American workers. She criticized China's trade policies, accusing them of exacerbating economic difficulties for U.S. workers. President Trump made it clear that the era of American economic surrender is over. He will not allow American workers and companies to be exploited by foolish trade practices. Leavitt added that while President Trump would not consider delaying or extending the tariffs, he remained open to negotiations.
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that she and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
So China has to call first?
The Chinese want to make a deal. They just don't know how to do it. But the president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China tonight.
Will that additional 50% go into effect tomorrow?
They will be going into effect at 12:01 a.m. tonight, so effectively tomorrow, yes.
Leavitt explained that the tariffs targeted not only monetary duties imposed by other nations on U.S. goods, but also non-monetary barriers to American trade. While signing an executive order aimed at boosting coal mining in the U.S. and seeking to more than double electricity production, Trump said that almost 70 countries are ready to negotiate with the U.S. on easing or removing tariffs.
Talks with many countries, over 70, they all want to come in. Our problem is, can't see that many that fast. But we don't have to, because as you know, the tariffs are on and the money is pouring in at a level that we've never seen before. And it's going to be great for us. It's going to be great for other countries. We've been ripped off and abused by countries for many years with the tariff situation. They've used tariffs against us. We didn't use tariffs against them or in any way. I mean, we just didn't use them of any monumental proportion. And so we are doing it now. We have tariffs on cars. We have tariffs on lumber, tariffs on steel and aluminum. Steel plants are going up because of it all over the country.
Meanwhile, speaking at the same event, Trump said that tariffs are generating up to $2 billion a day.
Taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day. And we're doing very well.
Asian stocks tumbled to new lows. Japan's Nikkei 225 initially plunged nearly 4%, while markets in South Korea, New Zealand, and Australia also posted losses. The drop followed a volatile session on Wall Street, characterized by sharp fluctuations and uncertainty in the market. On April 8th, The S&P 500 dropped 1.6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.8%, and the Nasdaq lost 2.1%. Earlier in the day, markets had seen a temporary rally with gains of 6% in Tokyo, 2.5% in Paris, and 1.6% in Shanghai before the market reversed. Besides, U.S. oil prices dropped to a multi-year low as the global trade war intensified. Oil prices fell below $60 a barrel due to a bleak economic outlook. Tesla stocks were also down 5.45% at closing, and Apple shares fell by 5.22%. While Nvidia stocks were down 2.01%, Amazon shares also fell 2.88% at closing. With the trade war escalating after China's retaliatory tariffs. Speaking at the National Republican Congressional Committee dinner in Washington, D.C., Trump announced the U.S. would soon impose a major tariff on pharmaceuticals to pressure pharma companies to leave China and establish manufacturing in the U.S. to sell to the domestic market.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. We have to do, we're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals.
And according to a statement by China's Ministry of Commerce, Beijing condemned the U.S. tariffs as groundless and labeled them a form of unilateral bullying. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Lin Jian, condemned U.S. tariff policy and said if U.S. disregards the interests of both countries, China will definitely retaliate. They won't move out. The other side is still imposing extreme pressure on China by imposing tariffs indiscriminately. China firmly opposes and will never accept such arrogant and bullying behavior. If the U.S. really wants to solve the problem through dialogue and negotiations, it should show an attitude of equality, respect, and reciprocity. If the U.S. disregards the interests of both countries and the international community and insists on waging a tariff war and trade war, China will definitely retaliate firmly following widespread tariffs imposed by the U.S.-China's second highest leader, Li Keqiang, said the country has the necessary tools to handle economic challenges. China's macroeconomic policy this year takes full account of various uncertainties and has a sufficient reserve of policy tools. China can fully hedge against adverse external effects and is fully confident of maintaining sustained and healthy economic development. The resolute measures taken by China are not only to safeguard its own sovereignty, security, and development interests, but also to defend international trade rules and international fairness and justice. According to Chinese state news agency Xinhua, Li Qiang's remarks came as the Chinese premier and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen discussed ways to bring stability and predictability to the global economy over a phone call, according to several commentators. China is reportedly considering a series of big moves to hit back against the United States. A Chinese blogger, Ren Yi, popularly known by his online alias Chairman Rabbit, said, Beijing may expand the trade dispute to include the services sector, where it runs a substantial deficit with the U.S. South China Morning Post reported. The trade war has been focused solely on the goods trade, which is unreasonable because in essence, the U.S. buys our goods and sells U.S. services in the service trade sector. China has significant room for countermeasures because the U.S. economy is largely driven by services, he said. Beijing still has 6 remaining big moves to counter U.S. trade pressure, which include placing restrictions on purchases of services from U.S. firms, substantially increasing tariffs on U.S. soybeans, banning imports of U.S. poultry and Hollywood films, suspending cooperation on controlling the illegal drug fentanyl, and investigating U.S. companies in China over intellectual property related issues. Now, analysts at J.P. Morgan have warned that the rapid escalation with U.S. tariffs on China were disruptive enough to push the global economy into recession. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned of devastating impacts that the additional tariffs could create for developing countries. Trade wars are extremely negative. Nobody wins with a trade war. Everybody tends to lose. And I'm particularly worried with the most vulnerable developing countries, in which the impact will be more devastating. I sincerely hope that we will have no recession, because a recession will have dramatic consequences, especially for the poorest people in the world as the global economy holds its breath. The world now watches to see which superpower takes the next step and how far this trade war will go.